Maya loved her quiet street. Her small house was neat with flower pots on the porch and a garden she tended every morning. She liked to wake up early, drink tea while watching the sunrise, and enjoy the calm before the world became noisy. For years, this had been her routine and it made her feel peaceful. But recently something had changed. Something had begun to disturb her calm every single morning. It started with a car. Not just any car, but a shiny bright Porsche that seemed too loud for the quiet neighborhood. The first morning it appeared, Maya opened her door, rubbing her eyes, expecting to see the mailman or maybe a delivery van. Instead, there it was, parked boldly across her driveway. She frowned, thinking perhaps it was an accident. Maybe the driver would move it in a minute. Minutes passed. No one came. She saw a young man step out of the car, holding a phone and wearing sunglasses. He looked around, smirked, and walked into the house across the street. That was the first time she realized this might be a daily problem. She tried to ignore it, hoping he would move the car tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and so did the Porsche. And the next day, and every day after that, without fail. The young man's name was Leo. Everyone in the neighborhood knew he was Karen's son, and Karen had a reputation for being spoiled and demanding. She was the kind of woman who seemed to think the world existed only for her convenience. Leo, unfortunately, had inherited that habit. He wore expensive clothes, spoke loudly on his phone, and laughed carelessly as he walked down the street. The driveway that once belonged to Maya alone now seemed like a stage for Leo's show. Maya tried to be patient. She left polite notes on the windshield. The notes were short and simple. One said, "Please do not park in my driveway. Thank you." Another said, "This is private property. Kindly park elsewhere." Each morning she hoped the message would reach him. Each morning it did not. He moved the car slightly to the side if she was watching, but by the next morning it was back in the same spot, blocking her path. Her patience began to wear thin. She would circle the block in her small car just to get to work on time. Sometimes neighbors would stare from their windows, shaking their heads. Mr. Hale, an elderly man who lived next door, once tripped on the curb while trying to avoid the car. Maya had to help him up and apologize to him, even though it was not her fault. Maya's mind began to churn with ideas. She thought of calling the authorities. She thought of putting up a fence. She thought of writing a stern letter to Karen herself. But each idea felt slow, like it would take weeks or months, and the Porsche would keep appearing every morning, eating away at her calm. She decided to observe Leo carefully. She noticed his routine. He arrived at exactly 7:20 a.m., always with the same smug expression. He parked, stepped out, checked his phone for messages, and then left the engine running while he talked to someone. The sound of the engine was loud enough to wake her neighbors. His footsteps echoed down the street as he strolled, oblivious to the inconvenience he caused. Maya also noticed the way the neighborhood reacted. People whispered about Leo but did not intervene. They were afraid of Karen's anger. They had seen her shout at delivery men, complain to the police about trivial things, and make neighbors uncomfortable with her demands. No one wanted to be involved. That made Maya feel alone in her struggle, but it also strengthened her resolve. She did not want to live her life avoiding a car that had no right to be in her driveway. One night Maya could not sleep. She dreamed of the Porsche as a giant stone in a river, blocking the flow of water. The river tried to move around it, but the stones behind it began to be covered. The image stayed with her after she woke. She understood that the car was more than a nuisance. It was a symbol of disrespect, of someone thinking they could take without giving thought to others. The next morning, she stepped outside with a sense of determination. She did not yell. She did not curse. She did not want trouble. She simply wanted her driveway to be clear so she could live her mornings in peace. She walked around the car carefully, touching its smooth surface, imagining what she could do if it did not move. She decided to make a plan. It would be careful, fair, and smart. First, she spoke to Mr. Hale. "Would you help me if the car blocked the sidewalk again?" she asked. He nodded, a little worried, but willing to support her. Next, she spoke to Luz, who owned the bakery down the street. Luz had seen Leo leave crumbs on the seat of his car and never clean them. She had seen him throw the remains of a drink out the window. "It's disrespectful," Luz said quietly. "Do what you must, but be safe." Maya made a list in her notebook. Morning arrival, engine loud, phone in hand, leaving late. These were the patterns. Then she made a second list. Gentle reminder, official complaint, camera, and a last option that she did not speak aloud. That last option stayed in her mind as a spark, a thought that gave her both worry and courage. She installed a small motion light near her porch. The light was bright enough to shine on the driveway without being harsh. She put up a polite sign, "Private property, kindly do not park." She hoped the combination of light and sign would convince him, but she doubted it. She knew Leo was spoiled. She knew he might ignore every polite signal, and he did. The next morning, 7:20 a.m. sharp, the Porsche was in her driveway. The engine was running and the music was loud. Maya stepped onto her porch holding a mug of tea and watched. She felt the familiar frustration rise. She tried to breathe slowly to calm herself. She could have shouted. She could have run outside and pounded on the car, but she did not. Instead, she thought about the plan she had been preparing. She realized that if she wanted respect, she could not wait for it to arrive on its own. She would need to act. She would not be cruel. She would not be reckless, but she would be firm. She would ensure that every morning, Leo learned that he could not treat someone else's property as his own. Maya's heart beat faster. She felt the tension and the resolve mixing together. She walked around the car slowly, observing it. The leather seats gleamed in the morning sun. The chrome reflected the flowers in her garden. It was beautiful, almost perfect, and that made her decision even clearer. This car represented the habit she could not tolerate, the daily disrespect, and the small injustice that added up over weeks. For the first time, she imagined herself moving the car without breaking it. She imagined guiding it carefully to the curb out of her way. She imagined showing Leo, without anger, that her driveway belonged to her. The idea made her nervous but also excited. It was the first step toward reclaiming her mornings. Maya sipped her tea and watched Leo's reflection in the side mirror. He was unaware, laughing softly into his phone. She made a quiet promise to herself. She would act tomorrow morning. She would make sure her driveway was free, not through shouting, not through anger, but through careful, clever action. The sun rose higher. Birds chirped. The street remained quiet except for the hum of the Porsche. Maya went inside and sat by her desk. She wrote notes about her plan, sketches of how to move the car and reminders to stay calm. She wrote, "Act with care, act with courage. Do not act out of anger. Let fairness guide every step." And as the morning passed, she felt a sense of purpose she had not felt in weeks. The Porsche would return tomorrow, but so would her determination. She would not let this spoiled habit ruin her calm mornings. She would reclaim what was hers. And she knew that when the time came, she would act wisely, firmly, and with careful precision. Maya looked out the window one last time before leaving for work. The Porsche gleamed in the driveway, bright and loud, like a challenge. She smiled a quiet, confident smile. Tomorrow the morning would be different. Tomorrow she would take her first step toward solving the problem. The next morning Maya woke early. The sky was pale and the air smelled fresh with dew. She dressed in comfortable clothes, ready for a day that promised change. Her mind was alert and focused. The Porsche, as expected, sat in her driveway. Its shiny hood reflected the first rays of sunlight. Leo was nowhere in sight yet, probably finishing his breakfast or checking messages on his phone. Maya stepped outside quietly, holding a small notebook and a pen. She had written down every detail the previous night, the position of the car, the angle of the tires, the path she would take to guide it without causing harm. Her plan was simple, careful, and precise. She did not want to break the car, nor did she want to cause a confrontation that would end badly. She only wanted one thing, her driveway free. She walked to the side of the house and looked around. Her neighbors were mostly still asleep, but Mr. Hale was moving slowly across his yard. Luz had already opened her bakery and was arranging fresh pastries in the window. Maya waved to them quietly. Both of them waved back. They had already heard about her plan the night before, and agreed silently to help if needed. Their support gave Maya courage. Maya went to the garage and brought out a small portable ramp she had purchased weeks ago. It was designed to help move small vehicles safely when needed. She also brought straps, gloves, and a sturdy board to use as a lever if necessary. Everything was ready. She placed the ramp carefully near the front tires of the Porsche and tested its stability. It was solid, strong, safe. At exactly 7:20 a.m., she heard the familiar rumble of the Porsche engine. Leo had arrived. He stepped out of the car wearing sunglasses and checking his phone. His confident walk was familiar, but today Maya felt no fear. She had prepared herself for this. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the car. "Good morning, Leo," she said in a calm voice. "Could I ask you to move your car? My driveway needs to be clear for the morning." Leo looked up from his phone, surprised to see Maya so close. He smirked. "Why should I?" he said. His tone was casual, almost teasing. "It's just a driveway. There's plenty of space on the street." Maya remained calm. She smiled slightly as if she were explaining something simple. "It is not just about space," she said. "It is about respect. You have been parking here every morning, and it blocks my way. I am asking kindly. Please move it." Leo laughed softly, the kind of laugh that tried to sound confident but had a sharp edge. "This is my mother's street," he said. "I can park wherever I want. Do you really think a few notes are going to stop me?" Maya did not respond. She only moved closer to the ramp, placing it firmly against the tires. She adjusted the straps and checked the board. Everything was ready. The plan was simple: guide the car carefully to the curb so it would not block her driveway. It was clever, safe, and firm. Leo stepped closer, noticing the preparation. "What are you doing?" he asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. "Are you trying to move my car by yourself?" "Yes," Maya said without anger. "I will guide it to the curb. I do not want to damage it. I only want my driveway free." Leo's smirk faded slightly. He stepped back, but his pride was still strong. "You cannot do that," he said, raising his hand as if to stop her. Maya shook her head gently. "I can and I will. If you cooperate, nothing will be harmed. If you resist, it might take longer and be more complicated. I hope you choose to cooperate." The moment was tense. The sun reflected off the Porsche, and the quiet street seemed to hold its breath. Then unexpectedly, Leo paused. He studied Maya, the ramp, and the board. He noticed the careful setup and realized she had thought everything through. He also noticed the neighbors watching from their yards. Mr. Hale leaned on his cane, and Luz stood near her bakery door. They did not speak, but their presence sent a message. Leo shifted his weight. He muttered something under his breath, but did not move closer. Maya stepped forward, holding the strap firmly. She attached it to the car's bumper carefully. She adjusted it twice to make sure it was secure. Then she positioned the board under the front tires, ready to lift slightly if needed. Every movement was slow, careful, and deliberate. She wanted control, but she also wanted safety. "Are you ready?" she asked. Leo did not answer. He simply stepped aside, watching her every move. Maya nodded to herself and took a deep breath. She lifted the board gently, feeling the tires shift slightly. The ramp made a small click sound as it supported the car. She guided the Porsche forward just a few inches at a time toward the curb. It was a delicate process. One wrong step could scratch the paint or unbalance the tires. But Maya moved carefully, steadying the car and keeping her focus. She noticed Leo's expression change. His initial amusement was gone. Now he looked surprised, even slightly worried. He had not expected her to act, and he had certainly not expected her to act so skillfully. Neighbors came closer quietly. Mr. Hale offered a hand to steady the board, and Luz held the strap from the other side. Together they guided the car slowly, inch by inch, until it rested perfectly at the edge of the street. The driveway was finally clear. Maya stepped back and smiled. She had done it. Leo stared at the car, then at Maya. His pride was bruised, but he said nothing. Maya did not gloat. She simply stepped aside, watching him. "Thank you," she said softly. "Now you can leave the car here if you want, but please no more mornings in my driveway." Leo opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at the neighbors, then back at Maya. Without another word, he got into the car and drove away slowly. Maya felt a surge of satisfaction, but also calm. She had acted with precision and no one had been hurt. The morning had been reclaimed and she had done it with clever planning, not anger. The next few days were different. The Porsche did not appear in her driveway. Leo had learned for now that Maya was not someone to be ignored. But she remained vigilant. She knew he might try again. She kept the ramp and board ready in the garage and checked the driveway every morning. The sense of peace returned, but with a new awareness. Maya had discovered that standing up for herself required courage, planning, and careful action. Neighbors noticed the change too. Mr. Hale smiled more often and walked without fear of tripping over the car. Luz had more customers at the bakery because the street felt calmer and safer. Maya's actions had sent a quiet but strong message. Respect was not optional, and small daily habits mattered. Maya did not feel proud in a loud way. She did not tell anyone she had been prepared to act. She only smiled quietly as she watered her garden and sipped her morning tea. The driveway was hers again, and she had learned an important lesson. Sometimes problems required more than words. Sometimes careful planning and calm action could solve challenges that anger could not. The sun rose higher, and Maya looked out at the street. The Porsche might return someday, but she was ready. She had a plan, neighbors who supported her, and a mind that would not be intimidated. The mornings were hers once more, and in that quiet victory she realized something more. Respect could be earned. It could be taught gently but firmly, and even a spoiled, careless person like Leo could learn, if shown the right boundaries. Maya's small, clever action had changed the street. Her driveway was free and her mornings were calm again. The next morning she would face the Porsche again if it returned. But she felt ready. The first step had been taken. She had acted carefully, wisely, and without anger, and that made all the difference. The next morning Maya woke to the soft chirping of birds. Her routine was the same as always. She watered her plants, brewed her tea, and stepped onto the porch to enjoy the calm. For a moment she smiled. The driveway was still empty. Her careful plan had worked, at least for a few days. She hoped Leo had learned the lesson and would finally respect her space. But at 7:15 a.m., she heard the familiar roar of an engine. Her smile faded. The Porsche appeared at the end of the street, gleaming under the morning sun. Maya felt her chest tighten, but she kept calm. She had prepared for this moment. Today she thought she would need to act with even more care. Leo stepped out of the car, checking his phone, still wearing the same confident expression. He walked slowly toward the driveway, clearly enjoying the sense of power that came from ignoring her property. Maya watched him for a moment, then walked outside, holding her notebook and the portable ramp she had used before. "Good morning, Leo," she said calmly. "I need you to move your car. Please park it on the street or in a legal spot." Leo laughed softly. "I thought you learned your lesson. This street belongs to my mother and I can park wherever I want. Your driveway does not stop me." Maya's jaw tightened slightly, but she kept her voice steady. "It is not about ownership. It is about respect. Please move the car." Leo smirked and walked closer to the driveway. He ignored the portable ramp and the straps Maya had brought. He believed that his confidence alone was enough to keep the situation under his control. Maya sighed quietly. She had anticipated his resistance. This time she did not act immediately. Instead, she waited for support. She knew Mr. Hale was watching from his window, and Luz had just opened her bakery for the morning. Their presence would help calm the situation. She also hoped that other neighbors might notice and offer quiet support if needed. Maya understood that confrontation alone was risky. She needed careful planning and allies. Leo began to step onto the driveway. His smug expression made it clear he did not take her seriously. Maya stepped closer to the ramp, adjusting it carefully. The straps were ready. The board for lifting the tires was in place. Her mind raced through the steps she had memorized. Everything had to be slow, deliberate, and safe. "Leo," she said firmly, "I do not want to damage your car. I only want my driveway free. If you cooperate, nothing will happen. If you resist, it may take longer and it may be more complicated for you." Leo's smirk faded slightly. He paused and glanced at the neighbors. Their silent attention made him uneasy, though he tried not to show it. Maya saw the flicker of hesitation and decided to act carefully. She moved the strap toward the front bumper, attaching it securely. Then she positioned the board under the tires. "This is the last chance to cooperate," she said softly. "Please step aside." Leo hesitated. For the first time, Maya noticed uncertainty in his eyes. He looked around, realizing that his usual confidence might not work this time. He stepped back slightly, muttering under his breath. Maya nodded to herself. The moment was delicate, but it was her chance to regain control. She lifted the board gently, feeling the tires shift slightly. The ramp clicked into place as it supported the car. Maya guided the Porsche forward carefully, inch by inch. The engine hummed quietly, but she kept her focus. She adjusted the straps, making sure the car moved smoothly. Each movement required patience and precision. Leo watched, clearly impressed despite himself. He had never seen anyone act with such calm determination. His arrogance was met with careful planning and steady hands. The neighbors watched quietly, understanding that Maya was not acting out of anger but with careful thought. Once the car reached the curb, Maya stepped back. She felt a small surge of satisfaction, but she kept calm. She did not need to shout or demand respect. Her actions spoke louder than words. Leo stepped closer to the car, frowning. "I do not understand why you care so much about a driveway," he said. "It is just a space." Maya shook her head gently. "It is not just a space. It is my home. Respect is important and small habits matter. You may think it is insignificant, but it affects everyone around you. Please remember that next time." Leo hesitated, then got into his car and drove away slowly. This time he did not leave the engine running. He did not rev the tires. He left quietly as if he had learned something, though his pride prevented him from admitting it openly. Maya took a deep breath. She had succeeded, but she also knew the battle was not over. Leo was young, spoiled, and careless. He might try again. She needed a long-term plan. She spoke quietly to Mr. Hale and Luce. "Thank you for watching. Your presence made a difference. I will remain vigilant, but today's success is because of calm and careful action." Mr. Hale nodded, leaning on his cane. "It is good to see someone stand up for themselves without anger." "You handled it wisely," Luce smiled. "It is inspiring. Sometimes people need to see a quiet but firm example. Today you showed that." Maya returned to her house and wrote notes in her notebook. She recorded the exact steps she had taken, the reactions and her observations. She planned for the future. If the Porsche returned, she would be ready. She would act carefully, safely, and with precision. Over the next few days, Maya noticed a change. The Porsche did not appear in her driveway immediately. Leo seemed to test the boundaries, driving past slowly, looking at her house but parking elsewhere. Maya remained calm, knowing that the lesson had taken effect. She continued her morning routine with a sense of quiet satisfaction. However, she also prepared for the possibility that he might return. She checked the ramp, the straps, and the board every morning. She studied the street for any potential obstacles. Her careful planning became part of her routine. It was not obsession. It was preparation. Maya understood that maintaining peace sometimes required vigilance. One morning, she noticed Leo talking to a group of friends near the end of the street. He was gesturing toward her house, clearly making jokes. Maya felt her chest tighten, but she kept calm. She knew that reacting with anger would only escalate the situation. Instead, she watched quietly, ready to act if needed. Her neighbors noticed the group as well. Mr. Hale came to the window, and Luce peeked from her bakery. They understood the potential for conflict, but they also trusted Maya's careful approach. She had proven that calm planning could solve problems. Leo returned to the driveway slowly. This time he parked slightly off-center, leaving enough space for Maya's car to pass. It was a small gesture, but significant. He was testing boundaries, seeing how much he could push without consequence. Maya watched silently, understanding that patience was now part of the lesson. She stepped outside and adjusted the ramp slightly, as if she were ready to act if needed. Leo noticed and raised an eyebrow. Maya did not move further. She simply stood with calm confidence, showing that she was alert and prepared. The morning passed without incident. Maya returned inside, feeling a sense of quiet victory. She had not shouted, argued, or threatened. She had acted with careful planning, calm focus, and firm resolve. Leo had begun to understand that his careless habits could not continue unchecked. That evening, Maya wrote in her notebook, "Today showed the importance of calm action and careful planning. Respect can be taught without anger. Vigilance is key. Small victories build larger change." She went to bed feeling satisfied. The Porsche had not blocked her driveway. Leo had begun to respect her space, at least partially. Maya knew that the next days would bring further challenges, but she felt ready. She had learned an important truth. Patience, planning, and quiet determination could overcome even the most spoiled and careless behavior. And as she drifted to sleep, she imagined the mornings ahead. The driveway free, the street calm, the lessons slowly being learned. Maya knew that each day was a small step toward lasting change. The mornings had become predictable but tense. Maya's driveway remained mostly clear, but Leo's testing behavior continued. He parked nearby, sometimes just enough to make her feel crowded, sometimes slowly driving past to see if she noticed. Each time Maya remained calm. She had learned that calm focus and careful preparation were her best tools. One Thursday, the sun had just begun to rise. Maya stepped onto her porch, holding a mug of tea, and noticed the familiar gleam of the Porsche at the end of the street. Leo stepped out, his posture more confident than before. He had been observing her. The way she acted carefully and decisively had earned his respect, but it also seemed to challenge him. Today he looked ready to push boundaries further. Maya took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment. Today, she thought, she might need more than careful movement. She might need strategy and support. She opened the garage quietly and checked the ramp, the straps, and the board. Everything was in place. She had also thought ahead about involving her neighbors if needed, without making a scene. Leo approached the driveway, stepping closer than before. "Morning, Maya," he said, his voice casual but with an edge. "I see you're ready for me again. Don't tell me you're going to move my car today." Maya did not respond with anger. She only nodded slightly. "I am prepared," she said. "I hope it does not need to happen, but I will protect my driveway if necessary." Leo's expression changed. He paused, noticing the determination in her eyes. He stepped back slightly, but only to grin. "You think you can stop me every day?" he asked. "I can park here all the time if I want." Maya's mind raced, but she stayed calm. She understood that Leo was trying to provoke a reaction. He wanted to see her lose patience or act recklessly. She would not give him that satisfaction. She adjusted the ramp and straps quietly, showing readiness without threat. "This is not about stopping you," she said calmly. "It is about respect. You can choose to act responsibly, or you can choose to cooperate. Either way, my driveway will remain clear." Leo studied her carefully. For the first time, Maya noticed uncertainty mixed with his confidence. He had never faced someone so steady. Most people either argued or retreated, but Maya stood firm, prepared, and calm. He was curious, but he was also frustrated. Maya stepped toward the ramp, adjusting it carefully. The neighbors watched quietly. Mr. Hale stood in his yard, leaning slightly on his cane while Luce peeked from her bakery. Their quiet presence added weight to Maya's actions. Leo realized that this was not just her fight. The neighborhood, in small ways, supported her. He sighed and muttered under his breath, but instead of stepping back, he stepped closer. Maya held her ground, keeping her hands on the straps. Her eyes met his, calm but unwavering. She knew she could not allow him to block the driveway again. Not today. Leo tried a different approach. He opened the driver's side door and leaned casually against the car. "You know," he said, "I could call my mother. She might not be happy with what you are doing. Maybe she will make sure I can park here anytime I want." Maya did not flinch. She remained calm, steady, and clear. "Your mother cannot teach respect for someone else's property. That is something you must learn yourself," she said softly. "Please move the car." Leo shook his head, clearly testing her. Maya took a deep breath and reminded herself of the plan. This was not about anger. It was about calm, deliberate action. She attached the straps to the bumper, checked the ramp, and positioned the board under the tires. Every movement was careful, controlled, and safe. Neighbors began to watch more closely. A few people stepped quietly onto their porches, curious but cautious. The street felt alive with quiet attention. Leo noticed this, and for a moment his confident expression faltered. Maya sensed the small victory. He realized that he was no longer the only person in control. Maya lifted the board slightly, moving the tires just enough to guide the Porsche toward the curb. Leo's eyes widened. He had not expected her to act so skillfully or with such careful planning. Each inch the car moved was a demonstration of calm control and patience. "See?" Maya said quietly. "There is no damage, and the driveway is clear. This is how respect works. Small, careful steps, thoughtful action, cooperation." Leo hesitated. For the first time, he seemed unsure. He had always relied on confidence and privilege, but here was someone acting with calm authority. Maya had not shouted, and she had not forced the car recklessly. She had acted with precision. Leo was impressed, even if he did not want to admit it. Maya guided the car fully to the curb. She stepped back and adjusted her stance, showing readiness but no threat. The driveway was free. The morning calm returned. Leo stepped back and closed the car door. He looked at Maya, then at the neighbors. He did not speak. For the first time, he seemed aware that his careless actions had consequences. Maya did not gloat. She only smiled faintly, showing quiet satisfaction. The rest of the morning passed without incident. Leo left quietly, the engine running low, and drove away. Maya returned to her porch, sipping her tea. She felt a mix of relief and cautious optimism. She had successfully guided him again. She had protected her driveway and demonstrated calm authority. Later that afternoon, she walked to Luce's bakery. "It went well this morning," she said quietly. The driveway stayed clear. Luce smiled. "I could see the calm in your actions. It makes a difference when someone handles problems without anger. People notice that. Even spoiled teenagers like Leo notice it." Maya nodded. "I hope this lasts, but I know he will test the limits again. I will stay prepared and act carefully." Mr. Hale joined them for a brief moment. "You have shown everyone that courage does not have to be loud. Quiet determination works better than shouting or threats." Maya felt grateful for their support. She returned home and checked her notebook. She recorded the steps she had taken, Leo's reactions, and the lessons she hoped he was learning. She wrote, "Calm action, careful planning, and firm boundaries can change behavior. Respect can be taught with patience and consistency." Over the next few days, the street felt different. Leo continued to drive past, but he was more cautious. He parked farther away and seemed to consider Maya's presence and the watchful eyes of the neighbors. He had begun to understand that her driveway was not just a space, and it was a boundary. Maya remained vigilant. Each morning she checked the ramp, straps, and board. She studied the street and watched the movements of the Porsche. She stayed calm but alert. She knew that boundaries needed reinforcement, and she was prepared to act if necessary. One evening, Maya sat on her porch, reflecting. She realized that her actions had not only protected her driveway, but had also influenced the neighborhood. People were more mindful of parking and respecting each other's property. The quiet streets felt calmer. Small changes in behavior had a ripple effect. She sipped her tea and watched the sunset. The Porsche might return, but she felt ready. She had learned an important truth. Persistence, careful planning, and calm authority were more powerful than anger or confrontation. Respect could be earned, and lessons could be taught without conflict. Maya smiled quietly. The challenge had risen, but so had her confidence. She knew that one day Leo would fully understand. Until then, she would remain patient, vigilant, and precise. The driveway was hers, and she had claimed it with intelligence and care. And as the sun disappeared behind the trees, Maya felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The street was changing. The lessons were being learned, and her mornings remained peaceful. The challenge had grown, but so had her strength. The mornings had finally begun to feel calm again. Maya stepped onto her porch with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The driveway was empty. The street was peaceful. For weeks she had managed Leo's behavior with careful planning, calm action, and quiet determination. She had guided the Porsche safely to the curb several times, taught lessons without anger, and maintained her boundaries firmly. Leo still drove past occasionally, but he no longer parked near her driveway. He had begun to understand that his usual careless habits would not succeed against someone who acted with patience and skill. Maya observed him from her porch one morning. He slowed his car near her house, glanced toward her, and then parked down the street. He stepped out, but this time his manner was quieter, more respectful. He did not walk arrogantly. He did not check his phone loudly. He seemed aware of the boundaries she had set. Maya smiled quietly. The calm authority she had maintained had finally made a difference. Respect, she realized, was not given freely. It had to be earned and reinforced with careful actions. She took a deep breath, enjoying the morning sunlight and the gentle hum of life around her. Later that day, Luce invited her for a small coffee at the bakery. "I noticed something today," Luce said, handing her a cup of tea. "Leo moved differently this morning. He seems to understand now. Your calm approach has changed him." Maya nodded. "It has taken time, but I believe consistency matters more than shouting. He had to see that his actions had consequences, but those consequences do not have to be harsh. They just have to be clear and steady." Mr. Hale joined them at the table. "I watched everything," he said. "You handled a very difficult situation with intelligence and patience. That is a lesson for all of us. People think they need force or anger to be heard, but you proved otherwise." Maya felt a warm sense of pride. Not pride in the way that seeks attention, but pride in knowing that she had acted wisely, safely, and effectively. She had maintained peace, protected her property, and taught a lesson that would last. That afternoon she returned home and looked at her driveway. The sun reflected off the paving stones, and the flowers in her garden seemed brighter. Everything was in order. Maya walked slowly along the path, checking each corner. She felt alert but calm. Preparation had become a habit. She had learned that vigilance, combined with careful planning, could prevent problems before they started. A few days later, Leo returned. He parked his Porsche on the street at a respectful distance from her driveway. He stepped out, looked at her house, and gave a small nod. It was not a boastful or arrogant gesture. It was quiet acknowledgement. Maya returned the nod, showing that she had noticed and appreciated the change. Maya realized that this small gesture was significant. Leo had begun to understand boundaries. He had started to practice respect. Her careful approach, combined with consistency, had changed his behavior without conflict, without anger, and without damage. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She continued her morning routine. She watered her plants, brewed tea, and sat on the porch. She felt a sense of calm that had been missing for months. The street was quiet. The neighbors felt safe, and the lesson had been learned. Over the next few weeks, Leo's visits to the street became even more respectful. He no longer drove past slowly to test her attention. He parked only in designated spaces. He was polite when speaking to neighbors. Maya observed these changes quietly, recognizing that her efforts had led to a small but important transformation. One morning, Maya saw Leo walking past her driveway carrying a small package. He paused, looked toward her, and smiled. "Good morning, Maya," he said politely. "I brought something for Luce's bakery. I hope she likes it." Maya was pleasantly surprised. "Good morning, Leo," she said calmly. "That is very thoughtful. I am sure Luce will appreciate it." He nodded and continued down the street. Maya watched him leave and felt a sense of quiet pride. This was more than a small act of kindness. It was a sign that the lesson had truly sunk in. Respect was now part of his behavior, not forced by fear or threat, but learned through careful guidance and clear boundaries. Maya reflected on her journey over the past weeks. The mornings that had been disrupted by a spoiled teenager and his flashy car had become an opportunity for growth, for herself, for the neighbors, and even for Leo. She realized that challenges often presented lessons, and careful, patient action could lead to better outcomes than anger or rash decisions. Mr. Hale stopped by later in the week. "The street feels different now," he said. "People are more mindful. It is quieter and calmer. Your actions have inspired others." Maya smiled. "It is not just me. Everyone who watched and supported helped make it possible. Small acts of courage and consistency can create bigger change than we imagine." Even Luce noticed the difference in the bakery. Customers commented on the calm and peaceful neighborhood. People no longer feared that the Porsche would block their way. The street had changed, not through shouting, not through confrontation, but through quiet, deliberate action. One morning, Maya stood on her porch and watched the sunrise. The light fell on her driveway, bright and open. The air was filled with birdsong and the gentle hum of life. She realized that the small battles of daily life could teach powerful lessons when handled with care and patience. Leo's behavior had changed. He had begun to respect boundaries, and he had started to show thoughtfulness toward others. The Porsche was no longer a symbol of selfishness. It was a reminder that lessons could be learned without conflict, that respect could be earned, and that careful action could transform difficult situations. Maya felt a sense of calm fulfillment. She had acted wisely, she had been patient, and she had guided change without anger. The mornings were hers again. The street was peaceful, and she knew that the lessons she had taught through careful, thoughtful action would remain far longer than any frustration she had felt. The driveway remained clear. The neighbors remained supportive, and Leo continued to learn. Maya continued her mornings with tea and flowers, confident that she had reclaimed her space, taught an important lesson, and created lasting change. And as she watched the sun climb higher, she smiled quietly, knowing that patience, careful planning, and firm boundaries had won the day. The challenge had ended not with conflict, but with understanding. Respect had been restored, and peace returned to the street. Maya's mornings were calm again. The Porsche remained at a respectful distance. Leo had learned a lesson that money and privilege could not buy, a lesson about respect, boundaries, and careful behavior. The street had learned it as well, and Maya, with quiet pride, sipped her tea. enjoying the simple joy of a clear driveway and a peaceful life.